Hey everybody, it's Mandolin Reese, the Street Angel, and it is officially showtime. Thank you for joining. And guess what? I'm launching season 7. And I will be doing my best to be working around the holidays. So just be aware of that. And I have really exciting stuff to talk about today. I'm going to be doing my best to share a screen, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my Facebook so that I can be streaming there. So let's just hope it's working. I keep trying to check and I don't know. So okay, so I want to say a few updates. First of all, I'm the Street Angel. I've been promoting kindness since 2012 all over the country. I showed you one of my posters already. You deserve love, because we'll be talking about love a lot in this show and this topic. But I've had different ones throughout the ages, throughout the years. And, they're all my handcrafted posters. I do it on purpose. One is a creative outlet. It's just fun to make them. And I like to make it colorful to draw the eye and get to the inner child. And this one's like a big one. Serve others with, there is no higher purpose or service to others. So I do all these different ones just to be putting positive vibes out in the world. It's like a higher calling I got that just hit me. And so I just do it. And I always do my intro because I never know if I have new people, seeing me for the first time, since I have new guests every show, So I love to have my talk show as an additional outlet to my public figure persona mission that I do, because my talk show, I can stream out to all my different social media platforms, reach a bunch of different people. And also I like to help my specifically selected guests share their light and their messages and their advice and guidance, just because I'm just trying to help people have better lives. So I seem to be having some kind of issue with my Facebook going live. So, oh well, I tried. But you can watch it on my Facebook page, like not my profile. Clearly that one's having issues. Okay, so I wanted to say an update on me is I had my birthday trip in Sedona, and it was amazing. I love Sedona, Arizona. It's like my favorite place in the world. And I wanted to show you some pictures. So let's go to this one. And so I want to say a special thank you to Scott Katamas. He's the founder of the Love Coach Academy. He invited me to his retreat, which happened to fall on my birthday this year. And I just decided I was going to go ahead and go. And so I just, this is my birthday party that they helped to put together. They told me to get on the table, for the record. It was really fun. It was kind of wobbly, and people were dancing, and we had carrot cake. This was the retreat. It was it wasn't everybody, because so yeah, I just love Sedona. So that was that. And let me see if I can figure out how to stop sharing screen. Okay. And so I wanted to show you that. And that was an amazing trip. I always feel like I can be my highest self there. And so, I wanted to add, so my season 6 finale of my talk show, I had said things that I wanted in a man. It was kind of like vulnerable, scandalous share or whatever. But I wanted to add a couple things that I forgot to add that were important. So one being, if I'm in a partnership with a guy, he defends me against bullies and people that are talking crap about me. Stand up for me. Like, if you love me and I'm doing a good thing in the world, and I've explained that, defend me against people and naysayers, build me up, help me out. I want to feel emotionally and mentally safe, energetically safe in his presence and comfortable. And that's so important to me, because then, of course, that would lay the platform for what we're going to be talking about today, which is having really better, beautiful communication and feeling safe in your communications with your partner. And so I went on this really crazy hike when I was in Sedona, and I don't usually put myself in dangerous situations. I didn't really realize what I was signing myself up for. But when I did, it was kind of like, well, it was very scary. There were like very high slopes and slippery areas. And the whole time I was sitting there thinking, damn, I really could die at any moment. And all these people I'm with, I mean, I worried about them too, but I really had to really focus. And it really forced you to like focus on the present moment. It's like if you aren't focused on your feet and your connection to the earth, I mean, you could slip and die. It was that scary. There was like boulders and drops and trees and that were falling down. And then I had this weird epiphany during my hike that I was like, well, sometimes, a relationship can feel like that. Like, I have reconnected with an ex and we're kind of working things out. And like, I had this epiphany where it's like, the beauty of the hike, the views, the weather, the colored leaves, there was so much to appreciate. And also the fact that I accomplished it. I survived. I got through the hike. We got to this magical cave that was way up high on this cliff. Like, what on earth is a cave doing in the middle of this upper cliff? And then we got to go inside this cave and have this like meditation time and like really reflect on. And then, you're sitting there scared thinking, how am I going to get back down this treacherous climb when it was hard enough getting up? And ironically, it felt a little easier going back down than it did up. I don't know why that is. I guess gravity, but I don't know. I was really scared thinking it was going to be harder. So anyway, how it related to like my partnership, where it was like there, partnerships can be very, very difficult and challenging and have these scary moments, being vulnerable. But then it's like there's so many beautiful moments, so many good memories, so much, intimacy you can have with a person. And like, that stuff, the romance and stuff like that is priceless and cherishable part of your life. So I just wanted to point that out. And also really quick, I'm going to run through I have Angel products, and I'm grateful. I've been selling a couple books. I guess people are noticing it when I talk about it. I released my book on Amazon, An Angel's Guide to Manifesting Your Dreams and Romantic Relationship, a playbook for planning your life. And here's the back cover. I think it's $30 on Amazon, but it's like a playbook that you can literally use for the rest of your life. And probably the earlier you get it, the better, because you can create a bucket list and it gives you some basic information on manifesting and help you create things in your life that you want to do. First, you just got to get clarity on it. And then if you do this meditation CD I have for sale on my website, thestreetangel.com, this helps you work through each one of your chakra energy systems to clear out your emotional trauma and damage. And it has some sound therapy tools in there. It's a guided meditation to help relieve emotional traumas and stuff and baggage. You can feel lighter and refilled with Holy Spirit light. And I have a romantic angel card guidance deck for sale as well. So it's not like an oracle card deck so much. It kind of helps you tune into your inner voice. And it's also for sale on my website. I think it's like $45. It's kind of a thick deck, but it helps you get to your inner voice and help you get guided through your partnerships and dating. So let's move along. I also can offer online coachings and angel card readings. If you're interested, just message me, contact me. My information streaming at the bottom there, but we can set up a private, StreamYard coaching or angel card reading if you're interested. So let's move on to the exciting topic of the day. So I'm going to be interviewing a really cool guy named Vision Battlesword. And I met him in Austin at a workshop. So he does a lot of workshops. And one of them is a mastermind workshop, which I took, and that's, how I met him. And then the other one is the show topic is intentional, autonomous, relating skills, like communication skills. I got a few pictures with him. So this is me and him at his IAR workshop. So I'm going to be saying IAR a lot because it's shorter, and that's the intentional, autonomous, relating, just abbreviated. And then we ran into our friend Harold Hona had a big event. And so we went and I ran into him there. Okay, so let me bring in Vision. Ta-da! Drum roll.
Hey, Mandy. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Cool. Well, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit. I also have some pictures I was going to show if I could figure out which one that I was going to show of your workshop. So are you open to that? I mean, just of me on the board and stuff.
Oh, sure.
Okay, cool. So this is a view from your house, right? Backyard? Overlooks Lake Travis and Austin.
That's my backyard. Yeah.
It's amazing. The energy there is really high as well. So I actually love that heart image. I was like, I want it. So we actually masterminded like, how do you want to describe your workshop?
Well, it's a manifestation journey. That's how I would describe it. It's my other project. This is not my IAR project that you're talking about right now. The mastermind project is actually, it's something that I do with a group, and we help people to. It's very similar to what you were talking about earlier with your manifestation workbook and guidance. So we bring folks into a container where we help guide them, as you know, through getting in touch with and getting clear with their highest dream of reality for themselves, their world, and their creations, and then helping them to remove whatever blocks and obstacles are standing between them, any resistances to stepping into that dream and just manifesting and living in that dream. And then creating an activation plan. So with the help of the other guests and the hosts in the container, we all mastermind a specific plan for each guest to start activating that dream in their life tomorrow.
Awesome. And what I worked on specifically at that workshop was having my season 6 of my talk show. And I did. And I've done 12 episodes, I think, for season 6. And now I'm starting with you as my season 7. So it was really helpful to do that workshop just to give me the insight, clarity, motivation to crank it out. Because sometimes you just need that push. And I feel like I got that from that workshop. So I do want to promote Visions workshops, people, and I'm going to put his link flowing down at the bottom of the screen there. You can look up his website, and you'll be having events as well. You have some coming up soon, right?
Yes. Well, I'm currently, if we're switching gears back to IAR, yes, I'm in the midst of a cycle, which I'm actually planning to repeat indefinitely on a monthly basis now. So Mandy, when you took my, thank you. When you took my IAR workshop a few months ago, that was all the material that I had. It was a 6-hour workshop where I was teaching the basic form of the intentional autonomous relating system, which I'm sure we're going to get into here in a few moments. And
so I was going to ask you that loaded question.
Just in the last month, there was a festival just a couple of weeks ago called Solar Punk Summit, and I debuted a bunch of new material that I've been working on for about a year, which is a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th level of the training for intentional autonomous relating. So I'm now doing a 4 workshop cycle on a monthly basis. So levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 repeating. So you can kind of drop into the cycle, start with the introduction, and then take the levels sequentially is the best way to do it. But you can drop into the cycle and then pick up where you left off if you miss any in the next one.
That's super cool. Do you get a workbook at each one?
Okay. Yeah, well, there's workbooks at the first 3. So level 1, 2, and 3 is like kind of the complete curriculum, if you will. And then level 4 is an all-day intensive. So I'm doing the first 3 levels at a public space in Austin, and then the level 4 is at the same house where you took your workshop a few months ago, Mandy. But it's an all-day intensive where now that you've got all the material, we just come in and we practice and we go super deep and build our skill set.
That's really cool. So let's do the loaded question, and it might take you a while. Explain to the audience, what is intentional autonomous relating, and how and why did you develop it, come up with it?
That is a loaded question. What is IAR? Well, I call IAR a system of interpersonal flourishing. And what I mean by that is it's a new paradigm, a new way of thinking about relationships altogether. So, and I guess it's easiest to explain in part by way of answering the second part of your question of like, how did I get here and why am I doing this? Um, but IAR is a new framework for thinking about relationships that's different than the way that we are kind of brought up in our culture to think about them. And it's different than traditional kind of relationship self-help systems, even really good ones, which I personally have learned a lot from and benefited from and integrated a lot into what ultimately has become IAR. But sort of standard relationship theory, codependence theory, attachment theory, the Gottman method, um, five love languages. There's lots and lots of these sort of relationship self-help books and systems and tools and techniques, and they're all great. I think that they're all detecting something, and they're detecting something true about relationships. But the way IAR is different is that IAR doesn't prescribe one magic bullet, right? For example, take attachment theory, which is very, very popular. The book Attached was bestseller, and as many people have learned about attachment styles: anxious, avoidant, and secure. And then, of course, the anxious, disorganized, and it gets more complicated from there. But the idea behind that is essentially that if you can figure out your attachment style, and if you can learn to perceive other people's attachment styles, then you're going to be good to go in relationships, right? Like that, as if this is the only or the most important dynamic in particularly love relationships, but interpersonal dynamics in general. And I think if you look at these other relationship systems, you'll find that they all sort of come from that same approach. Like, okay, well, it's all about the drama triangle, and these different role plays, or it's all about attachment styles, or it's all about codependency, or it's all about, 7 principles that make marriages work, or whatever it is. It's a single prescription. And IAR is different in the sense that it's a framework, and it's a different way of thinking about how we relate to each other, and it's a different way of communicating in relationship that actually takes and builds on all of these different puzzle pieces, all of these different tools and techniques for having better interpersonal relationships, or dealing with your own personal shadows and showing up as best you can in a relationship. It integrates all those things together, and it doesn't suggest that there's just one right way to do relating. So it's an agnostic system, but it provides a tool set for creating the best relationship that you and another person can have.
That's really cool. Like, how on earth did you get started in wanting to teach this, or developing, this interest in it? I guess it was your own experiment in dating, or relating.
Yeah, not just dating. I've been married twice. But yeah, I think like everybody, I've just been trying to have good relationships, for all of my life, or certainly all of my adult life. I've shown up poorly. I've gotten my heart broken several times. I've, gone through phases of, I'm just gonna close myself off and not even let myself love. I've gone through phases of, just falling head over heels and not even worrying about consequences. I've tried a lot of different things, and throughout, again, like my adult life, 20 plus years, I've just continually been searching for the magic bullet, right? What's the one thing that's going to unlock a joyful, flourishing relationship for me? And so I've gone to all of these different systems, and I've studied all of these different, I mean, not every single relationship system in existence, but many, many of them, dozens, and communication systems as well, just trying to get better. And I've gone through 2 marriages. neither one of them was perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like I've continually learned and improved. I went through a somewhat adversarial divorce, and I've also been through a conscious uncoupling, which was a really, really beautiful experience. But coming out of that in the last few years and kind of going into COVID, um, I just decided, I'm just not going to do the same thing again. I just decided for myself I wasn't going to repeat the same pattern of going out and dating and finding a lover and then becoming committed and then moving in together and then the escalator, as I've heard some people call it, right? The searching for a partner paradigm, if you will. I just decided I'm just not going to do that. And I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, or what I wasn't sure exactly what it was that I was doing, but I decided that I was going to go out with a different kind of intention in seeking human connection rather than seeking partnership, rather than seeking sex, rather than even seeking love. I was just going to seek human connection and intimacy with men and women and anyone, um, just humans. And what I
Like making
discovered,
friendships and stuff.
sure, yeah, making friendships, being open to intimacy, being open to affection, even being open to sex, but not necessarily seeking it, and partnership as well, right? But not necessarily seeking those things. But what I was earnestly seeking was just connection with people, and depth, bonding, intimacy.
Mm.
And what I discovered in doing that is that it was disruptive to people's patterns. People didn't really understand or know how to engage with me because they were expecting the A leads to B leads to C leads to D approach, right? And so in going out and just kind of being different with people, I was having great relationships. I was having great experiences. But I was noticing what this pattern was that I used to show up with and that I was disrupting. And a light bulb kind of started going off in my head that, oh, I could I could actually sort of document this, right? I could actually figure out what it is that I'm doing as a system and try and be more intentional about it, and then also try and communicate better to other people what it is that I'm doing so that they would understand, and so we wouldn't have some of these awkward situations that I was finding myself in. And so that was really where IAR started, was when I really first became intentional about trying to get clear with someone, a woman with whom I was relating, who is actually currently my partner, my beloved. Um, but she and I kind of began this process of articulating what this new thing is that we were trying to do. And now I call it intentional autonomous relating. And um,
It sounds
people
like
have been
you're in a,
encouraging.
yeah, I'm sorry. It sounds like you're in a higher consciousness partnership now using these principles, right?
It
Would
feels
you
like it
say?
to me. Yeah. Yeah, that's how it feels. And
Would you?
when I started sharing it with the people that were close to me, they started encouraging me to share it with more people because they were finding it valuable in their own lives.
It's interesting how, like, it's basically through pain and heartbreak and bad experiences that it makes you want to learn more and dive into all this material, and then, like, almost like you conglomerate together and come up with your own beautiful tools or path that you can present in a way, to relate better. And I think that's really cool. So how long have you been dating, or your partner, your beloved?
Well, I try not to use the word dating, and this
Okay.
is a big part of this is actually really like kind of the central theme of IAR actually, is getting clear about the language that we use. And
Right.
so that was actually one of the very first things when I came out of my second marriage and went back into the community with this new intention was I'm not going to date. I'm not going out. I'm not going to do dating. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have dates in the sense of a scheduled time and place to share experience with someone. But that idea of dating in the traditional romantic sense, if you will, I try to take that out of my vocabulary, and that's kind of part of how we actually change the thought process of relating in IAR is primarily by changing the language that we use. But I don't like that term. There's a few words that I find to be ambiguous. I used one of them earlier, but I used it in a very specific way. But words like dating and partner, um, even the word romantic, these words. If you ask, 5 people to define them, you'll get 6 different answers. They don't necessarily mean the same thing, or they don't mean something very specific. So what I would say is that I've been relating with a woman who is my lover. She's also my friend. She's also my partner in some ways. She certainly is my beloved. And sometimes I call her friend, sometimes I call her partner. But if I had to describe our relationship in IAR terminology, I'd say that we have a loving sexual partnership.
Cool. How long has it been going on?
Oh, for about 1.5 years.
Okay. Would you ever marry again, or do you feel like after your second one, marriage failed? Do you feel like that's not a structure that you want to engage in again?
Well, I don't want to be married to the state ever again. So what I
Mm.
mean to say is that I don't want to be a party to a contract that involves the government in my loving relationship.
Right.
That is the part of marriage that I feel for me was a mistake, and that I'm very skeptical and suspicious of at this point in my life. However, I'm very open to the idea of a commitment ceremony. I'm very open to the idea of a publicly witnessed um, commitment ceremony that's deeply meaningful to me and another person or some people.
That's really cool. Yeah. I was married once before too, and so I have felt like I have envisioned that kind of thing too, where I'm like, I have issues around the concept of marriage, and like you said, the contract and the having to do divorce and all this weird stuff that involves the government and the way they profit on breakups and marriages and problems and fighting. It's very strange. But yeah, I
Hmm.
can see myself having that kind of like a commitment, ceremony of just displaying the love and having a party, I guess. And but yeah, I resonate with what you're saying, and I want to ask, like, how do you feel like your evolution in your spirituality and higher consciousness within your own self and work has made you a better man and partner?
Hmm. Well, I'd say that for me, spirituality and empathy have gone very much hand in hand in terms of my own personal development. The more spiritual I get, the more empathetic I seem to become, and vice versa. And I believe that empathy has been a huge factor in the way I show up and the way I treat people in general, not just in relationship. Um, and I think that having a spiritual sense, is similar to empathy in realizing how connected we all are, and how much we're all a part of the same experience, um, different perspectives of the same experience. And I think that, so empathy in the sense of really having an earnest desire to understand another person. It's hard to be a jerk to somebody when you're truly empathizing with them. And I think that's a lot of what nonviolent communication is all about, which is a big
Mhm.
piece of what IAR is built on.
Right.
And I think it's also really tough to be a jerk to somebody when you have the perspective that you're really two aspects of the same being at some level. So I don't know if that means I'm a better man. That's a judgment, but I'd say that I feel more comfortable and I feel like I'm in more integrity in the way that I treat people as I've become more spiritual.
That's really cool, and that can literally be applied to all types of relating, like, and that's something you mentioned in your website, IAR's like intro, is you can literally apply it to all kinds of business partnerships, friendships, and the way that you're, relating and communicating to people, and it can just help you elevate the way, and coming from empathy and compassion is the first step, really, like kindness, like my whole mission, right, is it's like empathy, compassion, kindness. It's kind of, connected, where it's like if you can just try to drop in and see things from other people's perspective and not knowing what their background is that made them that way, or what kind of trauma they have that's running them, or why is somebody being a bully, like, you know what I'm saying. So it's kind of like just trying to have that empathy. And that's something big that the Love Coach Academy that I went to with Scott Katamas and all that, they really preach on empathy and compassion as part of communicating. Like when somebody's telling you something that they have a problem or they're hurt, trying to drop into that empathy and really listening and processing before you respond. And that takes a higher Jedi level consciousness to do, because a lot of people just want to fight or flight, react, like, energetically react. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And, um, I'd like to, if you don't mind, we're about a half an hour into the conversation here, and I realize that I haven't really explained, we've kind of talked and danced all around it, but I haven't actually explained what IAR really is, yet
Okay.
in the conversation. Would you mind if I just
Yeah,
kind of try
shoot.
and unpack that a little bit? Because
Hmm.
you're talking a lot about empathy and compassion, and I mentioned it as well. But I want to kind of zero in on what IAR is truly all about. And what IAR is all about, and the name of the system is intentional autonomous relating. And at its heart, what IAR is about is about being sincere with people that you relate to. And you're correct. IAR is not specifically for what we would call romantic relationships or loving sexual relationships, if you will. It's for all kinds of relationships. It can be for friendships, it can be for acquaintances, it can be for short-term, long-term, committed, non-committed, etc., partnerships. But what's at the heart of IAR, if empathy is like at the heart of NVC or nonviolent communication, and if your audience hasn't looked up nonviolent communication, I would highly encourage them to check that out. But if empathy is at the heart of NVC, what's at the heart of IAR is sincerity. And so, among other things, IAR, you could probably tell from the name, among other things, IAR is sort of built upon and is I believe sort of a step beyond or a step, um, an advancement from authentic relating. And so, what sincerity means to me is it means authenticity with earnestness. It means showing up in relationship, being willing, not only willing to reveal what's true for you, your actual true heart's desire, what you really want, being willing to share that, being um, you know not having any desire to conceal what your true intentions are, and being genuinely curious, earnestly curious what someone else's true heart's desire is, what they actually really want from you, and not just from you, but from other people as well. Like what is the entire scope of my heart's desire, is what I want to reveal, and I actually want to know that from you as well. And autonomous means showing up as your whole and complete self. And this, in my opinion, is one of the key antidotes to codependency. Codependency is having a sense of attachment or unwillingness to let go of another person, and also um, getting needs met, but in an unhealthy way, right? Sort of exchanging dysfunction is what codependency is all about. And what I've found in my life and in my relationships is that we've been taught to show up in a relationship with some values that our culture tells us are good and correct, but are actually sick and dysfunctional. And one of those key values that I call from the old paradigm is that self-sacrifice is the highest form of love. And what IAR suggests, and what I truly believe, is that the highest form of love is actually showing up in your own power, showing up resourced, showing up with your own sense of completeness, and then therefore being available to actually give from a genuine place of care, from a genuine place of joy and celebration of another person that you're choosing to relate with. That's autonomy, is relating by choice, not out of fear or a sense of dependence or a sense of obligation. And so sincerity and clarity, if I can sum up IR in 2 words, that's what it's all about. It's about showing up with your true, authentic desires and intentions, being willing to be honest and vulnerable in sharing those with another person, and having the tools or the language to actually be clear about what it is that you truly want from a partnership or from a relationship of any kind.
What is your advice if you find yourself in partnership, but you don't feel that sense of safety to have open, authentic communication or share things because maybe their trauma or their pattern of reaction that makes you uncomfortable? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, that's hard. And that's where, IAR, I hope, I mean, I know from my own perspective, but I hope it comes through for people. IAR really comes packaged with a sense of humility to it. I don't purport to have all of the answers with this system. And safety, basic safety, basic trust, basic integrity and honesty, those are things that IAR can't solve. IAR is built on those things. And so what I would recommend is that there are other tools available that, like some of these other books and systems that I mentioned. But the first step to being able to really have sincerity and clarity and intentional autonomy in your relationship is basic trust and safety have to be there. So if those aren't there, then I think before you can really do IAR, and IAR might be able to help put some stability and some structure into a relationship while you're trying to rebuild trust and safety, but those really need to be present. And there are, in the higher levels of IAR, I'm sort of talking at a very, very basic level, like an introductory level right now, but at the higher levels of IAR, I do actually start to explore things that go beyond the basics of what we do in relationship, like friendship and partnership and love and sex and intimacy and things like that, into things like safety and creativity and power, and healing and a number of other things. But that's kind of going into the advanced part of IAR.
Yeah, that's one of my questions on my list was if you wanted to touch on what does each level kind of talk about, if there's like bullet points or what does level 2 kind of go over, or 3, and
Sure. Well, you know what? Would it be okay before I get into that, would you mind if I put a slide up on the screen that just kind of goes over the basics of IAR with a
Absolutely.
visual? Because
Go
I know
ahead.
that like what we've been talking about, I think for a lot of people, they might be swimming in these concepts and like not sure exactly what I'm even talking about. So I'm gonna just go ahead and present my screen, if that's all right.
Mhm.
Perfect. So what I've got on the screen here is what I call my IAR cheat sheet. And this is something that I give out freely at festivals and at any of my workshops. You can pick up a copy, a copy of this. It's just a half page that has everything that is in the basic framework of IAR on it. And so none of these concepts is explained in detail, but it'll help you to get a visual of what the basic system is all about. So thank you. So the most fundamental piece of IAR is the channels, and the channels are social needs that we can get met in relationship. So when I came out of my second marriage, I started doing this thing which I didn't have a name for, and before I broke it down, um, I didn't, I was playing around with these concepts, and when I really started to get clear was when someone asked me to define romantic. And that was, I'm kind of a language geek. Y'all have probably figured that out by now. And so this is kind of what happened, what spilled out when I took the word romantic and I broke it apart to deconstruct it to find out what all is in there. And what I found is these 10 channels. Well, I found most of these 10 channels. I added some later on. But the channels of relating are sort of the different ways that we can have a relationship together, and they don't have to come as a package. In the old paradigm, we're told that they do, that things like affection and intimacy, love, sex, and partnership in particular should come as a package, and they should all be exclusive. Like you're supposed to share it with one person and you're not supposed to share it with anybody else. Now, of course, we've got some more modern concepts like polyamory and open relationships. And I'm not going down that path right now, but just to be clear, there are these concepts of these things coming as a package. And what IAR does is it takes them apart and suggests that they can actually be treated individually and put together into whatever package you want, whatever package actually makes sense for you and another person or people that you're relating with. Now, the next piece is intentions, open, closed, and seeking. And you've heard me use this language in just kind of the natural way that I'm talking about my relationships. And so the intentions are essentially, what would you like to do with the other person in these channels? Would you like to have intimacy? Are you actually seeking it, which means you would like to initiate having intimacy with someone? Or are you just open to it? Like, well, I'm not going to make the first move, but if you do, I'll receive. Or are you closed to it, meaning I actually don't want to have any relating in this area? And then we also can add some conditions and clarifications to this. Then we make boundaries and agreements. And that is essentially the basic form of intentional autonomous relating, is to have this kind of a conversation with someone where you're talking and speaking your intentions, like, hey, I really am open to all of these things and seeking these other things. These other things are kind of off the table. I'm closed to those. I don't want to have that kind of relationship with you right now. And here are the conditions in which, I would like to have, I would be open to sex, but only if it's exclusive, or I'd be open to sex, but only if it's not exclusive, or however that works for you. And you can take that in any of these different channels to make any kind of a relationship. And then when you put that all together with some healthy boundaries and some clearly spoken agreements, then you have what I call a container. And so when you have a container with someone, it's essentially a clear definition of your relationship, which creates that sense of safety, or it can help to create that sense of safety because you know where you stand. And within that, the boundaries of that container, then you're free to play and explore and celebrate each other and enjoy your time together. And if at any point your intentions or your conditions or your boundaries change, well, that's a part of people changing and evolving and developing. And you can repeat the conversation and you can modify and evolve your container. And the idea is that you're always seeking the best case scenario. Whatever is the best, most safest feeling, good, comfortable relating that we can have. Let's see if we can get to that place. And maybe sometimes we close some channels so that some other channels can remain healthy, and that's okay too. So that's the basic idea behind IAR. Thanks for letting me do
That's
that.
really cool. Yeah. Um, well, yeah, something I had discussed in a previous shows is like if you have trust issues, it makes it very hard to relate. Because I have a fundamental issue with the concept of trust as it is within humanity, because I feel like even if you think you trust somebody or have trust with them, they could be feeding you lies or omitting stuff. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
almost like, does trust really exist? You never really know until you find out some other way that there was a lie or an omission. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
it's just kind of something I personally struggle with after
Yeah.
all of my experiences, and I have trouble forming that foundation now, just because I have a fundamental issue with trust. And
Mhm.
like, you know being betrayed and lied to, and so it's almost like, I don't know how to describe myself, but it's almost like I have this, like, I just want complete freedom, but I also want partnership. And I
Mhm.
feel like that could be hard for a person to understand, where it's like, and maybe that's something we can talk about, where it's like, how do you relate? Like, how do you have this with your partner, where you relate and you're in a beautiful sexual intimate partnership, but you don't have maybe cage type labels? And like, how do you have your sovereignty without too much codependency, and have your freedom to explore life, but it's like, without hurting your partner so much, or you know what I'm saying? And I guess that's where the communication is so important, or just like trying
Mhm.
to figure out your container.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think so. That's the whole point of IR, really, right? Is how can we have our cake and eat it too? And I don't mean in the sense of, have a partner and a piece on the side. I mean, have our freedom and our autonomy, and have our communion and our commitment and our bond. How can we have all of that at the same time? That's the whole point. That's what IR is seeking to help people to find for themselves. And the answer, my answer to your question, I would love to come back around on the topic of trust also, by the way, because I can see that that's, really, that's a really important piece for you, and it's an important piece for me and everybody. But on the piece about freedom and exploration while still having, stability and security and partnership, it comes to me, it comes back to choice. It's everything that we do in IAR. Um, we really try to keep in mind at all times that everything that we're doing is by choice. So if we're in relationship or having a relationship with someone, we're showing up because we choose to be there. If we're entering into an agreement with someone, let's say for exclusivity in some channel or other, that's a choice that we're making. So you're essentially saying, I would prefer to have have this particular channel be exclusive with you for whatever reasons, personal safety, um, because I value this relationship, and I honor your wishes, and I would prioritize your comfort over, some aspect of my own freedom or ability to explore. And if that's ever not true anymore, if that's ever not the case, then that's an opportunity to have a new conversation and reevaluate your container. And maybe that sex channel with that person gets closed, but you can still maintain your friendship, your connection, your affection, even your intimacy, your love, etc. So the way it works for me is I am choosing to be to have a sexually exclusive relationship with a woman whom I love and with whom I share practically every channel at this point. Um, and we also have agreements, and we have set our boundaries in such a way that we have freedom, and we actually celebrate um, each other sharing affection and intimacy, friendship, connection, partnership with other people who we all kind of bring together into a community together.
Just
That's how
not
we do it.
sexually with other people. Like you have that
That's our
boundary.
that's our choice. Yeah, we've chosen to have that agreement.
Okay. That's cool. And I like how well you can articulate this stuff. I feel like you've probably come a long way, huh? With all of your progress and education and just researching and, you know,
Well,
experience.
even in the last year and a half since I started doing, what we now call IR, what I named IR back in probably May of last year, I've come a long way.
So this is
You know,
relatively new that you're teaching this stuff.
yeah, I started teaching it in September of last year, so it's been just over a year. And I started with the 5-hour workshop, that the same material that you experienced earlier in the year. That
Mm-hmm.
was that was what I've been offering for about a year, from September to September 21 to September 22. And then this last month in October, I just launched all the new material, which has more than doubled what's available.
So what would you recommend for people to heal like an anxious attachment style? Do you have any recommendation for healing that? Like should they go to counseling or therapy?
Hmm. Yeah, I would suggest, well, there's several books on attachment theory that you can certainly take a, type the phrase attachment theory into Amazon search engine or anything, and you'll come up with several books. The classic is called Attached. That's the one that has become very popular. I don't know that that book has, one of my criticisms of that particular book is that it doesn't really have a lot of prescriptions for how to move from an anxious or an avoidant attachment style into a secure attachment style. But in general, I find that a secure attachment style and a sort of healthy sense of autonomy and a sense of self-esteem they all kind of go hand in hand. I feel like they're all kind of a cluster of the same um, personality characteristics that come from, in general, doing personal development work, healing trauma, and developing the skill sets of that are the antidote to codependency, like honoring yourself, creating healthy boundaries, and
Self-love.
self-love. Yeah.
I feel like that is actually a lot of work, and it's as much healing and therapy and counseling and workshops and retreats that I have done. I almost feel like it's a daily practice. I mean, we get negative thoughts all the time. Our brain just cranks them out. So like it's like important to practice positive affirmation. Sometimes when I'm feeling really down, I will literally pull up a YouTube video of just nothing but positive affirmations that are saying in my ear, and it helps. It
Mm.
literally, sometimes you have to reprogram your brain to something more positive, because we are sometimes our own biggest enemy, our own biggest bully, our own thoughts just ragging on us, attacking ourselves, like criticizing ourselves. And it's especially hard when you're aging and you're like, damn, like, what is this wrinkle and what is this love handle? And it's like, it only gets harder, but it's like you have to try to love yourself even through the aging process and through your difficulties. And I keep positive affirmation quotes like plastered on my walls just to have them in my face and
Mhm.
my awareness and my in my vision. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I'm just speaking on it to encourage others to do similar, like, because I feel like it's just helpful, you know. Do you
Mm.
do anything? What do you do for your self-love or practice? Do you meditate? Do you do breath work? What kind of stuff do you do?
I journal and I garden mainly. Those are my two most sort of meditative, inwardly contemplative practices. I'd say gardening is my number one, um, the number one gift that I give to myself, because um, it's for whatever reason, it's some of the most joyful time that I ever spend is when I'm working in the garden, working with my hands in the earth, and it really fills me up with energy when I do it. And I also, it tends to be very meditative in the sense
Grounding.
of grounding and just being still with my thoughts. I'm not still, of course, I'm working, but my mind is a lot more still when I'm
Mm,
gardening, and that's also when a lot of insights come to me.
cool. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
I wish I meditated more, but I journal a lot myself. Like when I feel compelled, it helps my soul just let stuff out, I guess. Crying, believe it or not, I'm kind of a big crier. When I feel stuff, it usually comes out as like tears. Even when I feel angry, which it takes a lot to make me angry. I'm not angry very often, but it usually manifests as crying or tears. Not like I'm not really like a fighter or that kind of person, but um I had one other question. I kind of touched on it, but I asked you like five questions in one sentence, so it kind of got jumbled away.
Mhm.
So tips for loving a partner but not feeling energetically caged by the relationship. I don't know if you have any opinions,
Hmm.
thoughts, blurt outs.
Yeah, it's an interesting phrasing, because so I've been exploring the energetics of relationships in the last year, especially with my lover, my partner. And I wanted to say earlier that you're commenting on the way I speak about relationships and all this sort of stuff, and like the development of this whole system and this particular relationship with my lover, her name is Dawn, over this last year and a half has just been like I don't even know how to describe. Just, I mean, we've been through such a journey together. It's been so joyful. It's been challenging. Um, it hasn't been, it hasn't been all wine and roses, right? I mean, it's been like a roller coaster, but an amazing one, in the sense that every time we encounter a tension, every time we encounter a conflict, every time there's something that's not quite, doesn't feel quite comfortable, isn't quite fitting, our communication is strained or breaking down in some way, it always turns out to be this incredible growth opportunity for both of us. And in being committed first and foremost to our love for each other,
Mm.
and also to our friendship, um, and frankly, to the enjoyment that we get from each other in many ways. um, we we are just like sort of stubbornly, you know we're stubbornly committed to solving whatever it is, and whenever we do, it becomes this new revelation
A
that
new level. Yeah.
comes into IR. And it's like this relationship that we've been having is like surfacing. It's bizarre. It's like surfacing every common challenge and pitfall and difficulty that people, generally speaking, have. And it's not just that relationship. It's also many of my other close, intimate, personal relationships, friends, partners, others in my life that also have been helping to surface this, but primarily it's been my relationship with Don. And so I've come a long way in the last year, is what I'm trying to say, especially in the last year and a half in general. And part of what's come up for us is this whole idea of energy exchange, energy transfer, the energetics of relating, which go beyond just the clarity of language, that go beyond getting specific about the behaviors that are that feel comfortable to share with each other, that feel comfortable to share with other people outside of our container and so forth. Beyond that, there's the emotion. Beyond that, there's the energy. Beyond that, there's even the spiritual element that I've been exploring and discovering. And all of that is coming into IR. The energetics in particular, the most recent thing to get added. To answer your question, what the easiest way I can answer your question is to say that I think that the energy, the energetics of how a relationship feels can be separated in the same way that the channels that I showed you on the screen can be separated. The actual things that we do don't have to come intertwined. Like, I don't have to have my affection and my intimacy and my love, all come as a package with one person and exclusive. I can separate that out. And I think that same thing can be done with the energy centers as well. So in other words, you can have your love, you can share your love, you can give and receive that energy freely, or you can give it freely if that's what feels good to you, even if it's not necessarily all that same energy isn't necessarily coming back. And you can also keep your energy in other areas, in your sexual creative center, in your power center, in your intuition center, whatever those other energies are. You can keep those, or you can make those connections and share those. And if it's not feeling like that energy is in balance, you can pull your own energy back. That's the simplest way I can explain it quickly. But I also want to come back around to the topic of trust, and I wanted to say something about that. And it has to do also with the question you asked about attachment. And the piece that I want to say is this might sound a little weird because it's contrary to what we, generally speaking, have been taught in our culture, either through our parenting or our peer group, or just what we absorb through media or whatever. But what I'm going to say is that it's really important to be prepared to leave a relationship. By which I mean, I don't mean always having one foot out the door and like having your bags packed or whatever, to use an analogy, or maybe your literal bags packed, but that's not what I mean. What I mean to say is that if you don't in your heart know that you are going to be okay and that you can take care of yourself and be with yourself, and you don't need to be with anyone else, if you're not at that point where you actually can feel that in your heart and know that in your mind, that's where attachment and that's where codependency are going to come from. And if you don't trust the person, whoever it is, whether it be a friend, a romantic partner, a family member, or anyone, if you actually don't in your heart trust a person that you're relating with, you won't be able to have a healthy relationship. You have to repair that trust, or you have to be prepared to reclaim your own autonomy and set your own boundaries. And maybe that means not relating with that person. But what I've found is that when trust gets broken, but you can have an honest, open conversation about it, and when someone is actually ready and truly seeking to rebuild trust and to demonstrate through their behavior, to demonstrate through how they show up energetically, emotionally, and in all of the ways that they want that trust to be rebuilt, it actually can be rebuilt stronger than it ever was before. Like when you are trusting someone without any evidence of whether or not you can trust them, you can actually be stronger when you've gone through some fire together, when you've gone through, some hurt, some damage, but repaired that. Then that trust can actually be rebuilt stronger through that experience. That's my personal experience.
That's a good point. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people can find truth in that for sure. Well, do you feel complete, or do you feel up for one last question?
I'm ready for one more.
Yeah. Okay. Well, not to put the challenge on you, but would you feel comfortable sharing a real life example of something that you used your IAR skills to get through an issue with your partner?
Well, I'm trying to think of a good example, because I've used IAR a lot with all of my close relationships. So it's hard to pick one specific
Instance.
example, because we're all kind of using IAR with each other at this point all the time. So
Cool.
I'm trying to think of a really good one.
A juicy one.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a great one. So earlier this year, in the early spring, I was in a situation. I have kind of a group relationship, which is a partnership. It's the group that I put on the mastermind events with.
Yeah.
And so there's 5 of us, 3 men and 2 women, and we,
Good people.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We
We're all very, very close, very intimate, very affectionate. We have a very strong friendship, very strong partnership, and most of the channels, but explicitly non-sexual. Well, within that container, some sexual energy started to come up, and that created some tension in what I'll call my primary partnership, my relationship with Dawn. And we used IAR to get through that by rebuilding my container with one of my partners in the group, and by re-clarifying and reaffirming and setting boundaries around our intentions and our intentions for our sexual relationship. We discovered that that's inherently closed, that there may be some energy, there may be some attraction, but that won't happen because of the nature of our partnership and the rest of our relationship. And so that immediately dissolved that tension when we just got clear with each other about what was going on.
That's really cool. Just, I guess, being honest with each other, both your group partner and your primary love partner.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just literally having to talk it out, like you said, set boundaries if need be, and that can literally be applied to all kinds of situations out in the world, like in where people work with coworkers, or managers, receptionists. I mean, any level of relationship. I mean, it's just about being clear on, okay, how am I feeling? What do I need to do something about it? How can I come in high level of consciousness and empathy, have a conversation and communication about it carefully. And the wild card is you never really know how the other person is going to react, process it, understand, respond. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's the wild card, but all you can really do is stick to your truth. And I talk about that a lot with my beloved. Is, look, if he gets triggered by something out in the world, which seems to happen, and we get put in the weirdest circumstances. I swear, I don't know why God thinks it's funny, to like trigger random things in our environment and like challenge us. But it's like you said, a moment to communicate and grow. But it's like challenging at times to find the words and stick to your truth. And so it's like, that's something I'm always saying to my partner, that I'm sorry, we're triggered by that. And that is your reality. It might not be my reality. Let me explain, my position or my emotions or around it. And oftentimes if you do it right, you can have a rebonding, and heal your love and make up sex, maybe. I don't know. It just really, every situation's different, right? So, or sometimes you need to take a time out from your partner if things get a little too heated or emotional, or you're exhausted or something. And that is part of self-love and sovereignty, and not being too codependent is recognizing when you need some space or some time apart, or you need to go take a nap or a bath, or go watch a baseball game, like, hey, the World Series is on tonight, so that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't agree more.
Well, I want to conclude that. I think it was a really great, super cool show, and I want to thank you so much for your time and coming and being a guest and sharing this information. I hope some people got a lot out of it or took some notes. I'm a big note taker. I don't know if whenever I'm looking over here, it's because I'm like writing something down. I'm like, oh. So I hope people take notes and get a golden nugget or 2 or 3 or 10, And I hope to see you again for a workshop, maybe level 2 someday. I do best with text me or email. I know you're kind of limited on your outlets, so hopefully I can get out there to Austin at some time.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, it was a real pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me to come and talk to you today. I always enjoy our conversations, and I'd love to come back again sometime. And also, I'd love to organize bringing IAR down to San Antonio if it makes it easy for you. And if we could get a group together, I'd be happy to do my workshops there.
Cool. Okay. And I really like Dawn, by the way. I think I've met her and she's a sweetheart. And yeah, she's a higher consciousness one. I can just tell, from being around her and listening to her. So, big hearted person. So very nice to meet you guys, all of you, and, your group. And, I just want to thank the audience for watching. If you took the time to watch this show, thank you for support the Angel Mission and pass the show along if you think it'll help somebody else. You want to say any last words?
Just want to thank you and your audience, Mandy. It was my pleasure, and thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, everybody, have a wonderful night. You can catch Vision at his website, iar.life, or contact him in email if you want to find out. Get on his email list. He sends out a newsletter about his upcoming workshops. So his email is there, vision@iar.life. So that concludes the show. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and God bless. Love and light sparkles. Bye.